Do you know someone who knows exactly what Elex 1 was? No, you don't, because they're friggin' lying. Even after finishing Elex 1, it's not easy to parse everything that actually occurred or is occurring. This isn't going to be one of those videos that lays out nicely for you what Elex 2 exactly is as a preview. I'm going to try to explain it, but Elex 1 didn't even lay it out nicely for its fans. It was weirdly difficult at times, but also oddly gamified at others. And just when you were coming to grips with one side and type of enemies, the game threw entire sections at you that were post-apocalyptic, magic and sci-fi, and some mix at your feet and just said, enjoy what you enjoy. But in a weird way, that's why I liked Elex. It reminds me a little bit of so many other games out there with the weird, sort of broken up narratives that a lot of gamers enjoy piecing through. Elex 2 looks to be doing pretty much the same stuff. This is the final preview for Elex 2 prior to the game and the review, well, whenever that comes out. So first, Jax, he's the hero of the original game. He's basically been forgotten by everyone on the planet, but apparently not by a new alien race who's so scared of him that at the starting of the game, they smash asteroids into his house made of Eyes of Sauron and that crackle pop energy from Sith lightning force attacks to try to kill him right at the starting. Jax is a badass though, and after quickly dispatching the enemies, he's off to lead humanity into a fragile alliance to fight off the aliens, even though they just came from an alliance that they already broke. Here's a little history too. In Elex 1, Jax saved humanity by basically beating the shit out of everybody else. He is an Alb. That's a character class that basically uses this magical crystalline weird force on the planet known as Elex directly in their bodies. And in some ways, like Geralt from The Witcher or Elric of Melonbone before him, it screws up their emotions, their psyche, and their way of dealing with others socially, or it's just a way to not pay the voice actor to intone at all, one or the other. Now, once he saved mankind, he married Aloy from the Horizon Zero Dawn series, had a kid, and then promptly became a deadbeat dad and went off to live in a cabin. While he's there, I just assume he's doing some montages like Rocky, lifting some rocks and making intricately locked doors to cabins that actually don't have first story windows, but whatever. Now, when the aliens attack, he knows he has to go back and save the day, and that's pretty much code for mailbox style quests. Be prepared. This is a third person action adventure role playing game. And I say action adventure because there is quite a bit here, even though statistics still do drive everything. You know what I'm talking about. Some old dude's not going to be bothered to go 40 feet from where he stands to check the mail. So you go out there, you find some box someone dropped on their way to him or from him, and you bring it back to him for a little bit of a quest reward. But I'd be selling Elex 2 short if I didn't say that just like Elex 1, it does some things that always feel different for Piranha Bytes games. They're literally one of the only companies I've ever seen that feels like they're following somebody while leading the pack while at the same time following, like they're consistently changing places in which the race is actually won. Somehow, they're always giving these ideals of other third-person RPG games and offering just a little bit on the side. Elex 2 does the same thing. It doesn't take very long for Jax to get back up to speed just like he did in the original game. Here, you travel the world, you gather items, resources for crafting and supplies, and perform those quests I talk about. Now, I was joking about mailbox quests. They're not all like that. A great deal of them have some psychology to them that I was not expecting, and certainly is a step more towards, let's say, Witcher than Skyrim. Leveling up old Jax is as easy as killing things or solving quests, and then raising statistical points that also allow for you to increase the weapon types that you can use. It's all very RPG 1.0 kind of stuff. And here, you start out with the jetpack, and yes, if you've seen some footage of this, it can be upgraded because when you first get it, it's got all the endurance of a girlfriend experience and an even higher chance of injury. But once you do that, you can leap away from enemies, get some verticality for range and sighting out the local landscape, or if you want, just exploring. I'm sure somebody's going to compare it to Zelda Breath of the Wild just because you can explore. No, it's not anything like that, but it does work pretty well, at least as Elex is explained. Even when Elex 1 still had that cumbersome, I need to stretch more kind of movement of the main character, there was something about it that always was entertaining. We talk sometimes about games that offer a little bit more, something on the side, something that you weren't quite expecting. And the jetpack is that. This is a company that basically said, you know what, why wait for the jetpack? And I rarely am as happy as I was in Elex 2, hopscotching around the hazard-filled low polygon areas and just skimming around. I'm that kind of guy that just doesn't care that the exhaust is like 2 inches away from his belt line. The game also loves to throw a ton of unique looks at you, just like the first did. They don't always go together, but like the first game, it's always daring to toss you into a village that's inset on a cliff and then some crazy futuristic teleporter somewhere alongside some apocalyptic rusted cars nearby. Elex never looked amazing. Elex 2 doesn't either. I would say they're A.5 games, or maybe AA- or B+ or QQ for questionable quality. But one of the things that they do is they pack a ton of different looks in their ecosystems into these worlds, these various environments, and they go for it. And then they narratively give you tiny bits and hints about why it's there. We do know that the original game was 166 years after some horrendous event. And this is many years after Jax had saved humanity from basically falling apart after the original reconstruction. Sounds a little bit like an up-down path of Bitcoin prices, but that's pretty much Jax's entire life. But those narrative bits, the locations themselves, and the way it gives everything out, it sort of puts that chaos right in front of you and lets you experience it and let you unlock it. It's not as handholdy as other games, but it's not as always dense as, let's say, a Dark Souls when it comes to the way it handles narrative. Every discussion has 2 to 3 terms that you're not going to pick up right away, but unlike some games that really want to plight you, feed you every single scrap of narrative, in Elex 2, you're the one scrapping to put that narrative together, and various different bits of narrative that you get and terms are then explained as you continue to explore, trying to figure out what happened, who's doing what and why, or why this character or this character hates you after you apparently saved all of them, is part of the adventure itself. When raising a level, you'll realize right away that an unprepared character is a character that is trying to be a Jax of all trades. It takes a massive number of points to go up. For example, to go from swinging a sword into the face of a scorpion, bee, praying mantis hybrid, it can be 10 to 15 points in that stat. So the idea is not only that the level cap is going to be quite high, but also building and understanding how to create a character that plays the way you want, and sometimes may have to run away from particular enemies, is going to be very important from the very start. If there isn't a focus on this, that player is going to be killed the first time they face off against a giant spider who runs 2 times as fast as him and dodges out of the way of sword strikes. So maybe you need to leap onto the cliffs and use your range skill as well as a jetpack. Trust me, I know, because I didn't and I died. Now, this is a preview, and you guys know whenever I handle previews, I do talk about the bad, and there is a lot of jankiness to this game. It just feels janky no matter what. It always feels like Jax is one of those guys, one of those meatheads down at the gym, just like, yo, dude, lifting weights and only doing half the curl so that his tendons are super tight and he can't stretch his arms out to put a fucking shirt on. That's Jax at all times. Even his roll looks like he fell and somewhat recovered while he was doing so. Also, the sounds, they're worse. Somehow the sounds in this preview are worse than the last. I am pretty sure the jetpack sound is a sound from combat on the 2600 Atari. It's just an audio assault. It needs to be changed. I heard a bunch of birds fly away, but instead of a bunch of birds, I saw them fly away, and it literally sounded like somebody just clapping their hands into the microphone. Obviously, some of these samples are going to be replaced and traded out as the work continues to go on, because the game isn't coming out tomorrow, but it is something that I'm going to keep my eye on, because even in the cutscenes, I noticed that this was popping up in the various mix scenes here or there. I don't know how that's all going to feel. When it comes to the combat and locking on enemies, that works pretty well, and we do know that jetpack assisted combat is in the game. I have not been able to explore that or interact with it, because every time I try, I end up getting absolutely demolished by the bad guys. Another thing is the way Elex and Piranha Bytes' prior games have handled difficulty, which is a little bit unbalanced if you're prepared for a 1, 2, 3, and a little bit more cultured than you might expect if you're expecting a game that just doesn't worry about level scaling at all. This is a game that really has you look and identify what you may need to run away from and what you may not. And a single bad experience can be a situation where you think you can take on the enemy and you really can't figure out why they're kicking your ass until right before they maybe hit you with that one last slash, and you realize they're not wearing armor, they're super fast, and that's why you can't hit them. When it comes to the fun factor, because even though this is a preview, I'm going to talk about it, Elex, it's decidedly clumsier than a lot of other titles. It is definitely in that Eurojank space. It's something that you'll know. It's a Piranha Bytes staple. It reminds me of back in the days when Street Fighter spawned a series of unique, if not questionable quality imitators, but some of them offered parts that we see now in current games, even including Street Fighter itself. That is exactly how Elex feels. It's there, it feels mired directly into some of the issues that Elex 1 had, but it also steps up some parts and feels better. It's an odd assortment and mixture of other games with its own ideas, but it does have some really fun gameplay. So I'm hoping it all comes together, and by God, they need to fix the audio. Anyway, that's it for me. I hope you guys liked the video. Give it a thumbs up if you like it, thumbs down if you didn't. Check out Patreon, check out Facebook, Reddit, what have you. We've got actually a pretty nice sizable group of people on our ACG Vids Reddit as well, so that's pretty nice. Lucky to have all you guys. I hope you feel lucky to have found this channel. Well, maybe not that. That seems a little egregious. Maybe just, I hope you feel happy to have found this channel, not lucky. Peace out.